we're a remote-first company at Telium, but in the digital water cooler, there is buzz around the people who are working with this customer. They are very excited about what they're doing, about how this team thinks about things, about the problems they're trying to solve. So I'm very excited to welcome the team from WGU, Narendra Pandya and Eric Hansen. Please come to the stage and share your insights with us. Narendra, actually, look at his. Yeah, he's got the next level.
This is what I wanted to show, that this is what I do at WGU. We both do the same, free the data.
Yeah. All right, here you go.
Thank you.
Come this way.
Yep.
So, hello and welcome. We are super excited to present our personalized experience with a modernized data infrastructure, our WGU, Western Governors University story. I'll start with my introduction. I'm Narendra Pandya. I'm a distinguished data engineer. And as I rightly said, this is what I do at WGU, free the data. So I've been with WGU since 2012, and I've seen the journey. And I'll jump into that. Before that, Eric.
Yeah. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Eric Hansen. I'm the Director of Student Journey Measurement here at Western Governors University. I joined WGU about 9 years ago in 2016, starting out in their marketing department, helping them with their digital analytics space. But we quickly realized that there was a need for personalization and an experience design and optimization at scale across the entire student journey, hence the new title. I realize that we are all here keeping you from happy hour, so we'll try to be quick, keep this energetic. And you might think to yourself that, oh, a higher education institution using Telium and Databricks, how does this relate to me and my professional workload? And I promise there is some application here for you today. So I'm excited to share with you a little bit about that. But first, an introduction about WGU. WGU is, as of today, the largest university in the United States of America. Most of you might not know that. Why, you ask? Why don't you know this? Well, it's a pretty recent development. However, the other reason why you don't know about it is the fact that we're a non-for-profit. And so that means we don't have the same kind of marketing budget as a lot of for-profit institutions that have been around. We were established in 1997, so we also don't have kind of like that name brand recognition that has been around for years, like a Harvard or an Oxford. However, we're growing, and we have a great mission to make that happen. We believe that we can change the lives of individuals and families by creating pathways to opportunities for, allowing ourselves to be the most student-centric university in the world. We can meet students where they're at, providing them a way and a pathway to get credentials that mean something, even if they're in circumstances in life that would normally prevent them from achieving that dream. That means we have a diverse working adult age student base. I believe our average student age is around 34, 35 years old, not your typical university student. However, there's a lot of people who need to work or who can't go to a traditional four-year degree college, and WGU is here to serve them, as well as the traditional student that comes right out of high school. But that means we offer our educational incentives, our educational offerings come through by ways of an primarily online offering, competency-based. That means we test for knowledge and competency, not just how much time you spent in a seat. We're fully accredited, and we're here to change the face of higher education. And that requires a lot of data to make that support happen.
Thank you, Eric. So one of the key statements and the mission statement of WGU is to be the most student-centric university. To tag along with that, what I say is, if we really want to be student-centric, our approach for our data should be data-centric. And I would like to walk through the data journey that I have seen starting since 2012. And this is something that I think pretty much everyone in the audience would relate and would have lived the same life, starting with Excel. So same way, like as you can see, back in the day when I first joined, we had monthly reports created. Monthly reports was a report that was generated on the 10th of the month. And these were like 17 different Excel files attached to an email and sent to our president and the senior leadership. So that's where the journey started. The question, and again, this Excel world, my Excel greatest. So the main important task that was granted to me was like, okay, can we create an automated system? Can we create a click of a button, a PDF that can be sent as a monthly report? So that's where the journey started. We built our first enterprise data warehouse. So with that enterprise data warehouse, we started reporting all our analytical stuff, reporting stuff. As you see, the numbers are growing. From the very first report that I generated, which was about 38,000 active students to 91,000 active students in 2017, we very soon realized that this is growing really big. And we ran into a lot of problems. The vendor-specific lockdown tried to do all the horizontal scaling, vertical scaling, all sorts of scaling, but it wasn't helping. So we moved and we re-architected our structure of data to go into the data lake format. So enterprise data warehouse and then to the data lake. Now, all of this, while it was going, the business was also changing. Monthly reports changed to bi-weekly reports. So we wanted to deliver on time and in efficient manner. So that's where the journey for data lake came in. And then eventually, when we started moving further down, we had a data lake house created in the year 2021. This time, we report on a weekly basis. So we have a weekly business review. Now, in all of this, few of the learnings that I have learned from my past experience building data warehouses is, I don't want people to call me in the morning and say, Narendra, can we trust this data? Is this trustworthy? So to keep that aspect in mind, right from the beginning, right from the very first version when we built, we created audits for our system to create our data to be certified trustworthy. You don't have to dial anyone to ask whether data can be trusted. The audits were very clearly defined. Whenever the business requirement came to us, we said, in simple words, can you please define what is right and wrong? What would you call this as right and what would you call it as wrong? Those things became our business audits. And for our data folks, we created process audit. There were behind the scene audits. If the source system has 100 records, did they make it to the target system? And if they did, then the process audit successfully ran. So audits was one of the key aspects, and how to deliver it was just with a green dot and a red dot. If the audit email has a red dot, that means we are aware of a problem, the data will be fixed, and it will be delivered back to you. If it is a green dot, then you can just simply trust the certified data sets. So that's how the journey has gone. And from not a single version of truth to a single version of certified truth. And to quote from earlier, Jeff mentioned that we basically need to have a centralized flow of data. So this is basically how we move to a centralized flow of data. I want to do a little more deeper dive and the layering of data that we talked about. This is my way of layering the data that I would explain. The architecture behind the enterprise data lakehouse. The architecture is a medallion architecture which has the bronze, the silver, and the gold table. What you see in the last layer, and then I'm taking an example of a performance assessment. So in WGU, we have two types of assessments, objective assessments and performance assessments. So for performance assessment, back in the day, we had a system, a third party that we were using, which was TaskStream. TaskStream would send us files, and we would process the files and load the data into the bronze layer and then the silver layer, and then make it available in the gold layer for all the reporting and analytical needs. Now, this layering approach, eventually, when we moved into like a bigger role in 2019, we created our own homegrown EMA system, the Evaluation Management Application System. So what does that mean? Does it mean that if the tool changes, do I have to change all my stuff and my report? There are hundreds of reports created on top of it. Do they need to change? No, not really. This is where data-centric comes into play. This is where it comes to play that you treat your data as a product. So keeping data as an asset, keeping it as the centralized entity, which is the most important entity, your tools can change. Like we had a file format, then we had Cassandra, then we had Aurora-based database. All of these things can change. But the layering approach helped us to merge that data at the silver layer and then eventually have that same data flow into our gold layer. And then with the most recent investment, we created our own SAM system, which is, again, the Smart Assessment Management System. And then again, the combination of data. This is just an example to quote that how we make our architecture tool agnostic. totally not dependent on the tool. And this is all the baseline. And now, in the previous slide, you saw that my slide was only going up to 2025. Does that mean we are done? I would say no. This is just the beginning. This is the basis of all our data. We have created a gold mine of data, and now the real fun starts, and which is where Eric will take us to.
Well, before we get to the fun start, we have to acknowledge some other realities. While Narendra is doing all this great work creating a unified data architecture and data structure, the business side, we're still dealing with fragmentation. We're still dealing with siloed operations. Yeah, I could tell you horror stories, but we don't have time for that. But yeah, a lot of manual processes, less personalized experiences. What are we going to do about that? How do we handle delayed data insights? How do we personalize the experience that our students are having with all of this rich information? And so that required an evolution in our data architecture process, building on top of the great work that Narendra and his team had already worked on. And in comes Telium. We had worked with various audience management platforms in the past, but bringing in Telium was a real game changer for us because integrating Telium with Databricks allowed us to extract that gold that Narendra mentioned and place it inside of the Telium profile, in making our Telium profiles as valuable as gold. We were able to really integrate processes that we would enable AI-powered personalizations, realize some cost savings that I'll be talking about soon, and just regularly enriching audiences with lifetime insights. Was there anything you'd add?
Yeah, so with the Databricks, we are one of the early adopters back in the day when it was Spark-based system. So we started with Databricks in 2015, end of 2015, and so 2016 is when we had our first implementation of Spark-based system. The main core objective was we want to be tool agnostic. So we had all our data stored in files and all our code in Python. And then the Spark, which was an open source. So we went with this approach, and then time and again, Databricks has confirmed by making everything open source over and over. So this architecture, again, there was a question that came up with like, okay, we need to feed data. Now Telium needs data. Does Telium need to go to 10 different places? No. Telium can get all the data from that one central place and securely get the data, certified data that can be immediately used for actionable insights.
Absolutely. And so while Telium obviously has use cases for collecting data directly, and there's all sorts of connections that it supports, why not go to this already prepared, amazing data source that we have to enrich and activate on our data? We wanted, when we first started out with Telium, we wanted to make sure that we were achieving value quickly and right away. And so one of the most obvious use cases for us as a non-for-profit was ad suppression, because advertising in the higher education space is quite expensive. And we found a real opportunity. If we could suppress advertisements being shown to our students and staff, we could actually we actually ended up saving 5% of our marketing budget. You can imagine what you could do with a marketing budget with a 5% increase there. It's pretty nice. And that paid for Telium. Great. We can keep it. We don't have to get rid of it. So we're winning already. But that obviously wasn't enough, right? We needed to go way beyond just this simple suppression use case. And that means optimizing the message based on the student journey. This is a highly considered purchase or decision that someone's making. It's a life-changing decision. Do I go back to school? Do I get that master's degree? Do I get that certificate or credential? Can we use segments in our personalization engine to enhance our application conversion rate, or just make sure that the people who are in that cycle can make the right decision that's best for them? So this is what we did. We were able to enrich our Telium profiles with data from the data lakehouse about those people who are actively considering WGU as one of their options. And so when we identify that segment and we share it with Telium, then we use our A/B testing platform. In this case, this was VEWO. And we were able, after a short delay, when someone comes back to this program page, show a banner that offers those prospective students an opportunity to directly connect with an alumni from that particular program and have a conversation and say, hey, what was it like for you to get this degree from WGU? What was going to WGU like? Competency-based education? What does that mean? And we're talking about people who are first generation students, low-income students, students who are in the military, from all walks of life that might not have the social support network that's available to them. And that's critical when you're making a decision like going back to school or any type of purchase decision that's highly considered. You need to have a strength of conviction and connection, both socially, not just rationally. And that really paid off. In addition to that experiment and a variety of experiments that we were running in conjunction with Telium, we were able to realize a 22% increase in our application rate, as well as a 15% reduction in the dropout rate of the application from start to finish. Processing transcripts, dealing with financial aid applications, it's a very long process. So not only did we increase the total number, we increased the quality of the number of the applicants that we had. But we're still not done. We wanted to go beyond the simple or sophisticated use cases. And that's why my title is now Student Journey Measurement, because we needed to create an experience that could personalize our students' needs across the entire journey, from the first contact with WGU all the way through graduation and alumni. And that meant creating a sophisticated Learner 360 journey. Now, this was our answer. This is where you can start pulling in some interesting information that might be applicable to your particular use case or industry, because the concepts behind this are applicable to not only just higher education, but to pretty much any situation where you might need to make a decision in life. So this triangle that you're looking at here is kind of the lens by which we look at the student experience. If you think about learning or higher education, most people think of it as a cognitive endeavor. I need to learn knowledge. I need to display memory and retention of knowledge. I need to show how I might apply it. Very cognitively focused. However, through decades of research, we've learned and relied on cognitive science, neuroscience, and strategic applications of technology that the learner experience revolves around three components and this is called the trilogy of mind. The trilogy of mind is based primarily on German faculty psychology, and it's made up of these three components: cognition, conation, which you might have heard of some terms in the industry like Carol Dweck's mindset or Angela Duckworth's grit, volition, that's conation, and affect, emotions, feelings, mood. You know, there's a lot of research that shows that if you are not well connected to your emotions or your feelings in the process of learning or making any decision, your ability to make decisions is actually significantly depleted. We learn from neuroscience that if you're in a highly stressful situation, the levels of glutamate that exist in your brain are out of balance, are too high, and it literally limits your ability to think about complex matters and make complex decisions. Obviously limits your ability to learn, but if you're in a stressful situation, it might limit your ability to make purchases. So you can imagine how a student might feel. First-time student going in for a test, feeling nervous. What could we do to personalize that experience and help them overcome that challenge? Or cognitively, are people disconnected with their why? Do they start a degree and then over time start to lose connection with why they're pursuing that degree? What can we do there? And that's the Learner 360 ecosystem that we've been championing here at Western Governors University. One example is this simple traffic light system. We've created a momentum model with the data that Narendra mentioned. We have our data scientists working within Databricks creating a fantastic model. This student momentum model predicts with 85% accuracy in week 2 of their 26-week term how likely they are to complete their term, their entire course load. So if a student is in a green state, they're going well, great. How do we keep the positive momentum rolling? Do we use Telium to surface a celebration notification? Say, hey, great job. Glad you're on track for seeking your credential, completing your coursework. How about you connect with a peer who might be struggling, or share that celebration with your peers so that way you can continue to build that social connection and that momentum for yourself. But what if they're in a yellow state? Well, maybe that's a little bit more uncertain. They might miss or hit that goal. So that's where Telium comes in again. Can we activate an email or a text message to the individual to say, hey, we noticed you're starting to fall behind in some of your classes. What can we do to help? Or we even use Telium to surface that insight to their program advisor, their program mentor, and allow that advisor to make outreach efforts. And then of course, red. If they're likely to not succeed, they're too slow to complete the term, that's where we bring in peer coaching tools, exam coaching, and it's all enabled by these Telium activations. And at the end, that has resulted in a 5 percentage point increase in our very satisfied, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I'll tell you, our very satisfied is very high. I believe last I looked, it was over 90%, and we've added an additional 5 percentage points on top of that. And it makes a difference because when we are meeting students and our customers where they're at and giving them the personalized experiences, both cognitively, rationally, affectively, socially, and cognitively, from their grit, from their mindset perspective, then we are empowering them to make the best decisions for themselves, and everyone wins. So I'll hand it over to Narendra to talk about some lessons learned.
Thank you, Eric. So in this entire journey, right from our data architecture to building our data ecosystem to implementing these use cases across the board, what are the things that we learned and what are the things that we want to avoid? And some of the things that we would like to share with you all is, number one, yes, it really matters to have a certified, having that trust, having the certified single version of truth where people can easily use the data, feel comfortable about it, make decisions on it. So that's some of the key things that you want to work towards. Data literacy, again, another key important aspect is basically the literacy of the data, the knowing of the data, and also the governance of the data is not a responsibility of a single department. It's not that a data governance department will take care of it or the data engineering department will take care of it. It's a shared responsibility and everybody has a role to play in that. So how do we engage with all this? We have different programs that we run within our system. Every time we have a new goal table created, we will say, we'll create a new series of recordings and sessions and office hours and call it as Know Your Data. So K by D, what we call it as Know Your Data sessions. Everybody comes in, asks those questions, understand, and move on. So that's how the utilization and the spreading of the literacy goes across. Most important, as I already mentioned, pushing data as a product, treating data as a primary permanent asset and not giving a secondary treatment, not treating that, okay, I have data and my object is based on Salesforce or my data is based on Oracle. No, not using the tools, but using data as a product for something which can stay long for a ongoing basis. And most importantly, the tool agnostic thinking. So solve the problem. Don't think of, okay, how and what, but basically solve the problem and in a way that can be sustainable. What we need to avoid, one of the common thing, and we've heard a lot throughout the day, and this is my personal feeling, is treating AI as a tool. A simplistic way I would put it out is AI is a new intern. He's just recently joined your organization. Treat them as an intern. And it's hungry to learn from you. It's hungry to know your methods. It's hungry to know, okay, what can I do best for you? So train them, treat them as a colleague and train them in a way that can help you to enhance and optimize all your workings. Fragmented data sources and reporting, that's one of the key challenge. And one of the, right in the beginning in 2012, 2013, when we built the system, people would still bring their stuff and say, oh, this number looks wrong and this number looks right. And I have a different number, you have a different number. No, we're not in that business. We're not going to compare numbers. Either we have to use your numbers or the other numbers, but it can't be like you can't keep comparing. So again, that is something that you have to get it from the top down. So the leadership always has supported on, okay, what should be our central approach for using the data or implementing the data. And the next and important thing, which I also mentioned, which our leadership constantly promotes, is fail fast. So if there is something that we want to do with our AI approach, or we want to have a small project to be implemented, the leadership always encourages us to, yeah, go ahead, do it. Yeah. What would you do? You will fail fast, you will learn fast, and you will move on fast. So that's one of the key approach which has always helped us in our journey.
One of the things I would actually add that's actually not on this slide that I just thought of is one of the big lessons that I think we can take away from this fact is you've heard earlier today that in a lot of organizations that the Databricks team or data engineering might live under the CIO and the Telium team might live under the CMO. That is pretty common. And we were kind of lucky in a way because Narendra and I, we've been working together for about 10 years now. And even though I started in marketing, I quickly moved over to the institutional research department. And I say that because Narendra was there. And what happened was because we broke down walls and were communicating and sharing with each other what we were working on and what we were doing, we were able to help each other out and build connections from the beginning, from a technical standpoint, such that when it came time to integrate Telium with Databricks, it was no brainer. It was easy. We were ready to go. We were already communicating and relying on each other. And so I'd say one of the biggest lessons here is go talk to people, make connections over the wall of the CIO org or the CMO org, because there are people who are awesome, like Narendra here, that I can talk to and rely on and get his expertise and insight on that can inform Telium and vice versa, such that I now have use cases and real business value that can I say, hey, this was enabled by Databricks, and vice versa. You can say, hey, this was great and enabled by Telium.
Yep. So thank you, and it's mutual. Again, to have a partner who can understand you, talk the same language as you want to talk, and have that same wavelength, I think that's incredible. One last thing is vendor lock-in, vendor and AI lock-in, meaning every single tool that you're now looking at has AI capabilities. And then everybody has something or the other to offer. So don't think broadly, think in enterprise terms rather than thinking, okay, I'm looking at this particular tool, it has an AI chatbot and it has AI this, yeah, that's great. But is it going to help me to talk to my tools across the boundaries, across different functions, and having an AI strategy which spans across the enterprise? So those are some of the things that we thought we will share with you all with our journey. And I think that's anything else to add? Otherwise, we are ready for Q&A.
Yeah.
No time? Okay.
No time for Q&A. We're trying our best to keep us on schedule here. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Sorry.